I'd like to open this meeting of the Bedford Planning Board. The first item on our agenda is a public hearing on Safe Haven, a Healing Place, care of Josh Wagner. We're going to put that one off a little while because it's related to number 4 on the public hearings, and they probably should both be discussed at the same time. That means I have to wait 5 minutes before I can start item number 2, but I'd like to use that time to introduce everyone to our new alternate member of the planning board, Ryan Mancinelli. This is something new that the town of Bedford has decided to try. A number of communities do this. They have someone who is essentially an alternate who has not been on the planning board before and who may be interested at some point in the future being on the board as a full-time member. But if a situation arises, as it sometimes does, that one of us has a conflict of interest, our next door neighbor is doing something, we can't vote on it under those circumstances, or at least we shouldn't. If that kind of thing is going on, then particularly in times when it might be problematical to not have a full board, Ryan would be able to step in and act. It would be particularly helpful in situations where we have an application that is likely to go on for several meetings that one of us cannot participate in because of a conflict. That does happen sometimes. So we welcome Ryan to the board, and we hope this works out well for the town. Okay, and I didn't take 5 minutes to do that, so.
You're at 7:34, you got less than
1 minute.
before you can move on to number 2.
Oh, yes, that clock's slow, okay.
That's slow, yes.
Apple time is 7:34.
7:34.
We're going by Apple time. I hope nobody's offended. I don't know if Apple time is different from Microsoft time or not.
It's
By about 20 years.
7:35, we're good. Go ahead, Chair.
Okay, I think we have new microphones, by the way, so if people aren't hearing us or that kind of thing, let us know. And it is now 7:35, so the next item on our agenda is a public hearing to consider a special use permit application for the creation of tennis and pickleball courts, replacing an existing riding ring, and also for a fill permit for the same. The property is located at 282 Harris Road in Bedford Hills, and the owner is Bedford Hills Property Investment LP, and I believe the applicant, Tim Allen, Associates, may be here. Or is there someone here to speak for the applicant?
Just for his own use. As accessory.
Yep.
Is there someone here to speak for this application?
382. He's here.
Oh, there he is. Welcome.
Good evening, Tim Allen of Bibbo Associates, representing the applicant, Bedford Investment Properties. The piece of property is at 382 Harris Road. It constitutes approximately 28 acres of property. There's a large conservation easement that was created on the property on the backside. I believe that was created in the 1990s. The applicant is proposing to propose a tennis court and pickleball court on what was a former riding ring. The riding ring is still there today. The pickleball court and tennis court will be on the riding ring. We've been before wetlands on this application, and based on moving the tennis court further away from the wetlands. They've deemed that now that that would be an administrative permit, so we're working with Steve Coleman to finalize that. This application requires a special use permit from this board for the tennis court structure and also the importation of fill. The fill comes into, essentially, they've got to remove the sand ring and bring in the base material for the tennis court, so that's where the importation of fill comes before this board. So we're seeking approval of both special use permits tonight.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from members of the public? Questions or comments from members of the board? We have a memo from Jim Hahn's office.
Yeah, and those plans were revised and brought to Jim Hahn's office on Friday, and late this afternoon I received a memo from Will. Basically, there was just one minor comment left to work out with.
Did we get a copy of that?
Yes, it was by email.
Just
Sorry, not a full memo.
Probably about
but
3:30
just-
today.
Yeah, just an email that had confirmed that there was one minor change that needed to be addressed, but other than that, there were no additional outstanding concerns. If the board would like, we can have a revised memo. Otherwise, I can confirm that there was confirmation by email this afternoon.
I think that should be enough. This seems like a very straightforward application.
There's nothing material, I'm assuming, that in the outstanding issue per Han's latest correspondence.
What is the one outstanding issue?
Was it a incorrect labeling of a stormwater feature?
Yeah, the stormwater feature, we had switched the stormwater feature, and just the detail had been, just needs to be fixed.
So it's just a clerical issue?
Yep.
Clerical.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes. And you've decided it's going to be an admin permit with wetlands, not a full permit now?
Yeah, we're before Steve now solely.
Okay, so that's a new change too.
Right, so we don't have to make an appearance before wetlands as a condition of this approval if we decide to approve it. If we were to approve this today, what conditions would we put on it? Certainly, completion of Jim Hahn's
Yep, to make that one
agreement
correction.
with Jim Hahn's memo, and then also the administrative permit from the
From the
From the
town's
tenant.
environmental consultant.
the environmental consultant. And I believe that there was a recommendation for a bond. Yes.
Yes, was it 25,000?
Wetlands
Or
was
no.
gonna have a bond on it. I don't know if Jim's office had recommended a bond.
Ah,
Yeah, you might be confusing that with a different application.
do you remember whether there was a bond on it?
No, not on this one. That's a different
Not on this, on the other, okay. So I think those would be the only conditions.
And I would say for the fill permit, just to keep it consistent with town code, and of course having the town engineer be available for any inspections, and then closing out of the project.
Mhm.
But just very standard.
And that the paperwork on the source of the fill be completed.
Documented, yeah.
Okay.
I believe that this is an unlisted action. We do have an EAF on it, which we should take a look at, part one. Does somebody have that up? I don't
Yeah,
think.
I got it.
Here. Is this? No, this is.
No, I have it here. Do you want me to read through it?
No.
You want me to read through it?
Yeah, why don't you?
Okay. You want me to read it all out, or we'll go through page by page?
No, let's just go through quickly page by page. Does anybody have any issues on page 1?
No.
Issues. It is a permitted use under zoning regulations. It's consistent with the predominant character of the existing built-in natural landscape. It does adjoin a state-listed critical environmental area based on the area over the overlaying aquifer. It will not cause any increase in traffic. There are no public transportation services available. There's no pedestrian accommodation considered. It does meet or exceed energy code requirements.
Are there lights by the courts or no? So, okay. So there is no electricity.
Good point, though. Will it connect to an existing public or private water supply? No. Will the proposed action connect to existing wastewater utilities? No. It does not contain, nor is it substantially contiguous to building, archaeological site, or district listed on the National Estate Registers. It is in an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites, but it is also an area that's been disturbed.
Already, correct.
Does any portion of the site of the proposed action or lands adjoining the proposed action contain wetlands? Yes, that's being taken care of. Would it physically alter or encroach any existing wetland or water body? And the
No.
answer is no.
Answer is no.
The habitat type is suburban. That makes sense. Does not contain any species of animal or associated habitats listed by the state or federal government as threatened or endangered. It is located in the 100-year floodplain.
It's adjacent to a floodplain on the river on the backside.
Okay. Will the proposed action create stormwater discharge? Yes. Stormwater discharges will flow to adjacent properties, but the stormwater discharges will be directed to established conveyance.
No.
No, it will not be directed to established conveyance systems. But it does specify that there'll be a proposed infiltration system.
Right, I think that specifies
Justifies the-
town or county.
Yeah.
But
Does,
are they committed to doing it? It says proposed.
I believe the infiltration system is part of the proposal.
Yes,
Okay.
So assuming we approve this.
but I
it will
believe
be-
the way that's worded is that the stormwater conveyance is to a town or county stormwater system, so this is just on site.
Right.
Okay.
Does the proposed action include construction or other activities that would result in the impoundment of water or other liquids? No. Has it been the location of an active or closed solid waste management facility? No. Has the site of the proposed action or an adjoining property been subject to remediation, ongoing, or completed for hazardous waste? The answer is yes. What?
The contamination issue?
Yeah, what is the contamination?
Because there's no notes.
Yeah, I
printed.
believe that's, again, an adjacent site. It's not necessarily the site.
No.
No spill in the EAF mapper that did come up.
Okay, so it came up on the mapper?
Yeah.
We just need that note then.
Yeah. So add a note. Okay. Do we have a blank part 2? Short form part 2?
Fine.
Okay, we're all familiar with the questions on the short form part 2. Does anybody feel that I think rather than read them all out, I'll just ask you, does anybody feel that any of the thresholds on the short form part 2 are exceeded for this application. I see nothing in the
No.
part 1
No.
that
Agreed.
creates,
Or if any, it would be extremely small.
right. Anything is no or small impact. So that being the case, could I have a motion about whether, based on the analysis that we've just done, the action will not result in a significant adverse environmental impact, or that it will result in an environmental impact?
Move that it will not have a significant environmental impact.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So we found that this proposal will not have a serious environmental impact. That being the case, could I have a motion to either approve or disapprove this application? Let's start with the fill application, and then we'll do the special permit.
Oh, they can't be done together, separately?
Can we do the two of them together in this case? Okay. In that case, a resolution for both of the applications with the conditions that we,
I move is right, that both, that we approve both with the conditions that we enumerated just a short while ago.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any
Aye.
further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? One thing before I take final call for that, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Little out of order, I apologize for that. Back to the motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You have
Thank you very
your
much.
special permits.
Good luck.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is another public hearing. This one to consider an application for a special use permit for an accessory structure over 20 feet in height. The address is 102 Middle Patton Road. The owner is Alan Meyer, and the applicant is Chris Architects. Is there someone here to speak for the applicant?
I'm Jimmy Press. This is Joe Melito, Bruce Architects.
We are representing Alan Meyer for the garage accessory structure at 102 Middle Patton Road, in excess of 20 feet in height. We were here 2018 with a previous owner. We were approved for a building that was taller. This particular owner didn't need anything quite as elaborate, so we've scaled everything down, redesigned, and we're looking for a similar variance but much shorter.
It's not actually a variance.
It's a special.
It's a special permit.
Correct.
We like to be clear that people understand the distinction between a special permit and a variance. A special permit is an action that is allowed in a particular zone as of right, as long as you meet the requirements of the special permit. A variance is a permission to do something that is not normally allowed in a particular zone. The Zoning Board of Appeals handles variances. Special permits are handled by other boards in town as well as the CBA. So nobody is asking for a variance. The zoning allows buildings, accessory buildings that are more than 20 feet. But it says you have to meet certain criteria if you want to do it. Do you have, this is a public hearing, so I would think that you might want to show do you have any drawings to show the public? I think we've actually seen the plans, but if you could turn around and show the. Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience? Any questions or comments from the Zoom? Any questions or comments from members of the board?
To confirm, the main house exists as illustrated, correct? It's just a garage that's being built?
Right.
Was there something else where the garage is that was knocked down, or there was nothing there? Okay.
Nothing there.
Any other comments? The building certainly looks reasonable and in scale to me. It
Mhm.
doesn't seem like something
Yeah,
out of place.
you're matching the lower ridge line of the main house in height, correct? That's
One more opportunity. Final call. Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Could I have a motion to close the public hearing? Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
The public hearing, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, the public hearing is closed. If we were to take, if we were to take action today, I don't see that there would be any conditions that I can think of. Can anybody think of any conditions that they would put on this?
The only thing is in the short form, the item 11 where it says it connects to the wastewater system, existing wastewater utilities, I assume that's incorrect.
That is incorrect. There's
So
a
that's gotta be
bathroom.
changed.
So they technically don't even need that.
Right.
Yeah.
It was filled out.
But I understand.
Maybe okay. We should
We have to
determine whether this is a type 2 or an unlisted action. I believe it is a type 2 action.
So moved.
Agreed.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor of it being a type 2 action under seeker?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's a type 2 action under seeker. There's no necessity for us to go any further with the environmental review. Do I have a motion to grant this
To approve, and
without any conditions?
without any conditions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You have it.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next public hearing it's really two public hearings that we're somewhat putting together. The first is to consider an application for a special use permit for an existing accessory structure, in this case, a cottage, and it's specifically, I think the issue is not so much that it's an existing accessory structure as that it is an existing cottage that could be used as an additional residence. And then the second issue is to consider a special use permit on the same property for a philanthropic or eleemosynary use for the property as an animal sanctuary. So I'd like you to present both of these, and then we'll take each one on its own merits. If you could identify yourself, please.
Okay, I'm Josh Wagner with Safe Haven at 44 Bayberry Lane. For the first one, this is a special permit for a cottage. It was originally permitted in 2014 by the previous owners. They never renewed it, and then when I moved in, I was informed that it was past 5 years post-renewal and had to apply again. There's been no modifications. It was inspected last week and approved by the town. There's been no changes since it was first approved.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then I'm going to ask you to present both, because there is some connection between the two, in that they're on the same property.
Sure. So there's a farmhand living in that cottage that takes care of the animals for the animal sanctuary.
Okay. Who is the owner of the property?
The Safe Haven, a healing place, is the owner of the property.
Yeah. The issue that we have to figure out on this is that one of the requirements for a cottage is that the owner of the property live on the property. That you can't have two non-owners in the two residences when you have an accessory cottage or an accessory apartment for that matter. In the case of an eleemosynary institution, we haven't had this come up before. Who is the owner that lives on the property?
Well, I don't know how exactly the verbiage or terminology, but I'm the founder of the 501c3, the nonprofit.
What I think we need to look at a bit, and why I'm going to suggest that we not make a decision on this tonight, is whether or not that fits the law, and whether it meets with the spirit of the law. This is a public hearing, so I'd like to open the public hearing for the section dealing with the apartment, first of all. Yes. If you would go up and please identify yourself.
My name's Ron Morgan. It's my wife, Adrian. We're in 50 Beverly Lane, and we're opposed to the special use permit for an animal sanctuary open to the public on a residential street.
I was trying to keep the two separate, but
Okay, then I'll start with that one.
okay.
Ron Morgan, Adrian Morgan. We're opposed to the special use permit for the cottage if the cottage facilitates the administration or operation of Safe Haven. We're opposed to an animal sanctuary open to the public on our residential street. Therefore, we're opposed to the special permit for the cottage, given it will be used to facilitate the sanctuary. We've never opposed the special permit before, the last two times.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes.
Hi, I'm Ed Gonzalez. I'm on 47 Bayberry Lane. My wife Gina is here with me. We oppose both as well. I know you're asking about the cottage only, but they're connected here. And, you know, based on the fact that it is a private lane, and I know you're going to get into the next motion afterwards, we just want to be on the record that we oppose that for public use. And as far as the application goes, we see a lot of disconnects between the application and the notice that was sent to us to review.
Could you be a bit more specific about the disconnects?
Yes. So on the public notice, there is actually on the application there are questions that I think this board had asked for the owner to complete, and there's some words on there about allowing 4 people on the property at a time, but requesting a permit for 10 vehicles to park on the permit, which belongs to the cottage. That's one. Secondly, there's a public website that already has this business listed with hours that go throughout the day on a Saturday. It's also on the application says that there'll be 4 people at a time at the residence who they will be toured. No tours, but they will be toured over to the animal sanctuary for a short period of time. But on the public website, there is a whole hour dedicated for tours of the animals. And there is further businesses that are being listed on that website, sports mentorship for youth, and some other things. So there's a disconnect between the questions that were put forward that I saw from 2 members here and the answers that were put on the application.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments from members of the,
Just for the cottage.
sorry?
Any other comments just for the cottage?
Just for the cottage. Yeah. Any comments about the cottage from anyone on Zoom?
I have a comment.
Yes?
My name is Stephen Russell. I'm at 43 Bayberry Lane, and my feedback is consistent with the other feedback you have received so far. We are not in favor of the permit for the cottage and not in favor for the permit for the animal sanctuary. I'm not going to get repetitive. I'm in total agreement with the prior two residents of my street. When we moved to our house just before the pandemic, we had no contemplation of ever having to have this type of a facility directly across the street from our driveway. And it's just something that my wife and I are not comfortable with. So we are opposed to the permit, to both permits.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us, are there any other comments from the Zoom about the cottage? All right, I'm going to table the cottage for the time being and turn to the animal sanctuary. What kind of animals are you talking about?
Goats and sheep.
And why do these particular animals need sanctuary? What is the?
Well, I'd like to just answer based on some of the concerns that came up in terms of vehicles and all that. On the application, I believe it said how many cars could be there, like could park without being on-street parking, and I just said 10. So that was different than how many people would be visiting the animals at one time. The question was, what's possible for parking? I just estimated based on in the driveway how many cars could fit without any street parking. So that was that answer. The 4 people within that hour on Saturday still seems to be consistent. There's been no street parking based on anyone coming to the property that I know of. Or
Are you saying that that you've been operating this Iliamossin areas?
I would say people have come to see the animals, and I don't believe it's caused any disturbance, noise-wise, parking, anything like that.
One of the things that are required for a special permit is, for this particular special permit, is that the Iliamossin area used to be of some benefit to the larger community. How does what you're doing differ from your just keeping 10 sheep or goats?
Right.
Which you can do under Bedford zoning.
Right, so that's the purpose of people being able to visit and educating children on animal care and safety and humane services. But it's not a free-for-all. Anyone could come at any time, park on the street, cause any disturbances, anything like that.
Are you required to have any kind of state license for this?
From the research I've done and been told, no, because it's not dogs and cats needing kennel permits. And I'm keeping within the town code of the number of animals based on the size of the paddocks and property.
But you're having members of the public come to interact with the animals.
To see them, yeah.
I have to admit to not being familiar with the New York state law on animal sanctuaries.
I can
You asked
provide.
the chair asked another question, is why do these animals need sanctuary? Because one of the issues is what this contributes, and these are common farm animals. Why do they need sanctuary in that
No,
sense?
understand. I have a passion for animals. These are all from slaughterhouses that would have been killed, and we're just giving them a wonderful place, a safe place to live and live out their entire life in the process of educating others.
How long have you been using, have you had this foundation?
The foundation has been active a number of years as we were getting funds for the property. But the actual, it being in use has only been the last few months.
Has it ever operated on another?
No, this is the first property.
Because I did notice that on your IRS materials, there were different addresses for the corporation
Oh,
and also
it's-
different contact names.
Well, okay, so the only reason there was a different address is because we got this property in November of last year. So it has been, the foundation has been for years in operation raising funds. So we didn't have this address up until
When did you get the sheep and the goats?
this year, starting in February, March,
And where did you get them?
from a slaughterhouse in Peekskill.
And were these the only sheep and goats at the slaughterhouse, or was this, how did you decide?
How did I decide on that location? That was just based on proximity, one of the closest places to get animals that would have been slaughtered.
So it wasn't that you were looking at a particular issue that had arisen,
No, I'm not sure I understand the question, but no, I don't think so.
You know, I've been aware of sanctuaries that have started for animals that have been raised in, well, for dogs, for example, that have been raised in terrible conditions in these essentially manufacturing units for dogs. I've been aware of rescues for animals that are being turned over to slaughterhouses at the end of a different kind of animal career. Are these goats and sheep? It's a difficult thing to talk about, but are these goats and sheep that are being raised for the most part to become dinner?
I don't know if they were raised for that reason, but by the time they've gotten to the slaughterhouse, that's what will be their future.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the question that we asked before. What is the broader purpose of this foundation that is important to the community of Bedford?
The broader purpose is just animal sanctuary, and sharing that with anyone who cares and wants to know more about caring for animals. It's not for everyone, it's just in that capacity. And specifically caring for animals that are on the property. Those breeds.
Again, this is a public hearing. Well, before I turn it back over to the public again to comment on this, I've heard mention of, there is some material on your website about youth sports. You also talked about meditation classes in some of the material. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
those are just services I offer on a youth sports one-to-one basis, meditation, small group. There's no charge, no pay. It's everyone parks on the property. It's just things I have passions for.
Mhm. You don't collect any donations for
Not
this?
asking, not collecting.
And you're raising money from the general public for this nonprofit?
No, it's all self-funded.
It's all self-funded?
Yeah.
And how many acres is the property?
7.5.
So it's not a subdividable property and you're not protecting any land by doing this?
Not that I know of, not my
It's
intention.
4-acre zone, so you're not
Right, that's
protecting unless there's something I'm missing here.
Correct.
Can you tell me why the foundation is called the Healing Place for Children and Rescue Animals?
That was the original name, and then it got changed over the years as the vision changed. So the technical name is Safe Haven, a Healing Place Incorporated.
So what's the nexus between the sports part of it and the animal protection?
Well, really, since I submitted the application, Jessica gave me some clarity via email. I said we can scrap anything related to meditation or youth sports mentoring, and it just be focused on the animals.
In keeping with the town's code for keeping of animals as an accessory use to a primary use, which would be residential. I
Yeah,
want to make that very clear to the board and the public.
so you weren't talking about it as a special permit
No,
use? you
I
were-
was speaking in the context of 125-27 keeping of animals,
Mhm.
or 17 or whatever it is.
I mean, this is what puzzles me a little bit, is that this is something that any of us who have enough property, could choose to do, is to keep a set of animals in a protective situation. Usually sanctuaries have an ongoing mission, and I'm not quite sure I see what the ongoing mission
Well-
of this sanctuary is.
I mean, the mission is that it's going to be going on for decades, and my goal is to hand it off to continue that purpose. And it's over my lifetime, hundreds and hundreds of animals that are saved, and educating children and the public who are interested in this. It's
Well, I'm not sure it's going to be hundreds of animals at 10.
maybe I was just saying over time, it's more than someone just having a couple goats on a property. Like there's
Well, actually, it would be, the time isn't going to make any difference whether if somebody is taking in animals, whether they've declared themselves 503C or not. It doesn't really affect the number of animals. You still are bound by the number that are allowed on property.
right. I just said I just meant that I'm going to continue this purpose. It's not something I'm just doing this year or a fad, and it's got, you can, well, I don't know where people buy goats or sheep, but it's specifically based on everything I've documented, that they would have been slaughtered, and they're also being used for educational purposes.
Ms. Youngblood, could you just clarify how many animals of that nature is someone allowed to have on 7 acres in Bedford?
15,
15?
which you're below that number.
Right. And my plan is not to exceed what the town allows.
Now, there is one other issue that you are probably aware of, which is that the eleemosynary special permit is limited to properties that are on state or county roads.
Yes, Jessica emailed me about that, and I've emailed the contact that she told me to start an application process.
That would be an application for a variance. And again, I explained the difference between a variance and a special permit. So I think people understand that.
Understood.
I would like to open the floor to members of the public now to speak about the sanctuary.
Ron Morgan, my wife Adrian Morgan, 50 Bayberry Lane. We're abutting neighbors to 44 Bayberry Lane. We're opposed to the special use permit for the animal sanctuary. Bayberry Lane's a quiet residential dead end. There are 11 total homes. 4 of the 11 residents have lived there for 26 or more years. Not a single mailbox has a name inscribed on it. Its total length is about 1/3 of a mile. The entry and exit in and out of Bayberry Lane onto 172 is notoriously difficult. And 5 of the 11 homes are at the end of the cul-de-sac. All the driveways funnel into the cul-de-sac and are less than 20 yards from the driveway of 44 Bayberry Lane. Article 8, Section 125-82 clearly states the institution shall have frontage and access on a county or state road, like you mentioned. Bayberry Lane is neither. We confirmed with the New York State DOT database. Article 8, Section 125-82 requests applicant demonstrate community purpose. One item being safety. The safety of 15 sheep or goats should not be a priority over the safety of our children, adults, and our vibrant equine community. Our concerns are increased traffic flow in the cul-de-sac, safety concerns to our children, the adults, and our equine community. Bayberry is an artery for our equine community to access the BRLA, and that's the access point into Westmoreland Sanctuary. Our horses and riders are definitely at risk. Increase in neighborhood noise. The Safe Haven website states open to the public on Saturdays, 10 to 3. For the animal sanctuary, the youth sports mentorship program, which he's addressed. 10 cars on Bayberry Lane doubles the total population of the neighborhood. Runoff of animal waste to neighboring properties during strong rains. Unwanted signs. Strangers driving around the neighborhood and possibly trespassing. Parking issues via the cul-de-sac. And lastly, we're concerned about negative impact on our property values. To conclude, there will be undesirable changes to the character of the neighborhood. It'll be a detriment to the nearby properties. The variance request is substantial. The variance will result in adverse physical and environmental effects on the neighborhood community. And this difficulty is self-created. The property appears to have been purchased with the goal of creating the animal sanctuary. This should have been discussed with the planning board prior to the purchase. The residents of Bayberry Lane do not want to be pushed into the role of enforcement because of the approval of this special permit. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any comments from other members of the public?
Can I make one other comment pertinent to what he's saying?
Sure.
If you have people that are routinely riding there and their horses are used to a certain flow of traffic, and then you have people from outside coming in larger than normal numbers, it changes the safety of what they're doing. It's a different thing for the horseback riders to contend with.
There are 3 functioning backdoor barns on Bayberry Lane. Two
Right,
are
no,
active,
there's a
2 are
huge horse
currently
community there, but it's a real issue for someone who's riding in a neighborhood setting to be faced with
With
an
that kind of a
influx
change.
of, yeah, well, with an influx of people and traffic. It's a really different thing.
This is why we have the expertise of different people on the board. I did not grow up with horses. Dr. Lewis did.
We didn't either. We learned that we moved in 6 years ago, and we learned that ourselves. Like, you know, dealing with horses and pedestrian traffic on the street, you have to slow down and you have to be very careful, to your point. I'm not going to repeat everything Mr. Morgan just said, but we agree wholeheartedly with what he just presented. We just want to be on the record that we oppose the application for Safe Haven. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from members?
Can I respond at all?
Sure.
So all of the points are understandable and completely hypothetical with the most negative slant. There's never been one car parked on the street for my property. There's more car traffic based on how many times people order Amazon or have maintenance workers than anything coming to Safe Haven. We talked about 4 people within an hour on Saturdays. Literally, there's more landscaping, maintenance traffic, and Amazon deliveries than anything is going to happen with this. So it just makes it sound like, oh, now there's vigilantes coming to trespass and drive faster on kids.
Well, I don't think anybody's saying vigilantes. I think that's really inappropriate.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And it also concerns me that you've been running this and have a website up without a permit in a residential area. So that's a concern as well.
I was told the website had to be up months ago for an application, so that's...
But you're explaining that you're running it.
There is no requirement in the town of Bedford that you have a website for
Okay. Getting back to the safety and the quietness of the street, nothing so far, nothing planned operation is going to cause an influx of traffic or noise or danger in any way whatsoever.
I do have to say, I think that's a matter of conjecture on both parts. There is the reason that the town of Bedford has the requirement about state and county roads is that these type of uses do tend to bring more traffic, and this is a particularly, and when you're talking about a cul-de-sac, you're pretty much talking about the polar opposite of something on a state or county road. It's one thing when there may be there are a number of local roads that are not state or county roads but are not isolated. But a cul-de-sac, when folks buy property on a cul-de-sac, it's usually because they're looking for another level of privacy.
Oh, I understand. I'm just stating from my experience, there's far more maintenance, landscaping, package delivery every day than anything that I will ever produce.
I want to pin to the exact frequency of use. So I've heard you say 1 time a week or 1 hour. In the doc, it says 1 time per week for visitors of the animals not to exceed 4 at a time. So what are you actually doing or proposing here? Is it 1 set of visitors not to exceed 4 within a week? Is it 4 at a time in hour slots, 1 day a week? What is?
Or is
In
it
the- in that
every day
hour.
a week?
No, on Saturdays from 11 to 12, not to exceed 4 people visiting the animals. That's, yeah.
So it's hard to see how that makes a mission a really strong argument too. I mean,
What?
4 people once a week for 1 hour.
Well, it's
Is-
every week.
I
and for years
understand
I've
that.
just-
I understand that.
And trying to respect everything that's all the concerns that have been brought up.
Where did you learn the care and care and feeding, if you will, of goats and sheep?
I volunteered in Los Angeles at an enormous animal sanctuary and shelter years ago before moving back here. It's called
What
the
kind of
Gentle Barn.
Which shelter?
It's called the Gentle Barn outside of Los Angeles, and they had pretty much every type of animal that you can imagine on a farm.
You haven't had any interactions with the Department of Agriculture and Markets, New York State Department of Ag and Markets?
I did. I believe that was requested early on, and I think if there was no dogs and cats, and I was staying within the town code for the amount of animals for the property, and all the structures and safety are present, there was nothing else they were requesting.
You are a private. You are a nonprofit entity that is purchasing and rehoming livestock, right? Like, you're not doing it in your personal capacity as a homeowner. You're doing it as the organization's purchasing. Yeah. So I do think you should look into a domestic animal health permit, which is a state requirement.
I will. This was months ago, so I think it was because I wasn't reselling them that they said certain things didn't apply. I'm trying to check every box of doing everything correctly, but I did reach out to the New York State Department of Agriculture and submitted a letter to Jessica saying that I didn't need anything from them, for instance.
All right, I didn't see it on the packet. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I included that.
It wasn't a it was a
Okay.
question.
Have you discussed with anyone whether or not there are any precautions that need to be taken when you're educating children and educating children to be with animals? What training do you have?
So for the volunteering at the Gentle Barn and not doing anything differently or less cautious than when visitors would go there and get to learn about the animals.
Do you have a vet who will regularly be checking the health of the herd?
We don't have someone that will come when there's no symptoms present, but yeah, like not without obvious sickness or ill health.
Do you know what to look for illness in a flock of sheep or goats?
I know some, and the farmhand as well has worked with animals for decades.
So you have a farmhand who will be living on the property.
Yes, that was originally with the cottage.
Okay, and I assume that he is paid or she is paid.
Yes.
And do they have any responsibilities other than taking care of the animals?
No.
Anybody have any other questions?
Do you have any idea how old the animals are that you have at the moment?
All within under 2 years.
And you have no idea what farms they came from?
Before the slaughterhouse? I don't know.
Have you talked to the Department of Health at all about whether they have any requirements if you're going to be having visitors to the animals on a regular basis?
No, but I can do that. Is that New York State Department of Health?
No, Westchester County.
Westchester County, okay.
And are there educational requirements?
Well, that's part of what.
Separate?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think there's a lot that we need to educate ourselves on about this. So many of the interactions with animals that we're aware of involve training and licensing. By and large, my impression has always been that the state quite rightly, for the sake of animals that are to be cared for, want to make sure that those who care for them in larger numbers are fully trained and capable of taking care of them. When you're not careful.
People taking care of children are trained.
As well, yes.
Yeah, for that specifically.
Yeah, and that is why I asked about the interaction between the animals and children. It's one thing to keep animals yourself, it's another thing to keep animals for a public purpose. It can be a very good thing to keep animals for a public purpose, but what comes first for the good of the animals is the training of the people
Understand.
who do this. I think we've all seen the films of the well-meaning cat lady or dog lover who keeps taking in the rescue animals but doesn't know how to take care of them. I do have friends who keep goats, actually, and the town's been having more experience with them recently because we have an ordinance that now allows people to hire goats out to clean their pastures. But there was a certain amount of training involved in all of that. And I find myself very concerned about something that seems to not be fully thought out, frankly. The care of the animals themselves should be the first criteria if you're running an animal sanctuary.
What have I shared that seems the care of the animals isn't thought out?
I'm sorry.
Maybe I misinterpreted, but you said it seems like it hasn't been well thought out, the care of the animals. And I'm just wondering what I've shared that seems that the care of the animals hasn't been well thought out.
It's what you haven't shared is any sense of real training in it, real understanding of the needs of the animals, any understanding of what might go into exposing the animals to children and children to the animals on a regular basis. Have you consulted with a veterinarian about how good an idea that is?
I
Have
haven't
you-
consulted with a veterinarian on that aspect. I've just had years of experience working at animal sanctuaries, shelters, and just went from that experience of both the care of the animals and interacting with adults and children.
I don't think we're going to take a motion on this tonight. I think there's a lot we need to find out about it. I would like you to ascertain whether you actually have been in contact with the agriculture department. If you're, you seem to be.
I have been with the agricultural department, not with the health. So I will
Okay.
get in touch with the Westchester Health Department.
Do you have anything in writing from the agricultural people?
Yes, I have it via email. Jessica has a copy, but I can submit that.
Who are the people that are listed as the contact people for the organization on the IRS materials? There's a
Board
Mrs.
members?
So you have a.
Well, there has to be a board for a nonprofit.
So these are board members.
Correct.
The contact people.
Correct.
How many board members do you have?
2 besides me.
So that's one is Mrs. Thomas and the other is
Michael Costello.
Michael Costello.
I think you might be looking at someone else's. I don't recognize those names.
So there's a
They both have the same
yeah, on
phone
the
number.
IRS notice there's a contact person listed as Michael Costello, and then there's another IRS document that names a contact person as Mrs. Johnson.
Johnson, not Thomas.
Did you look that up, or did I submit that?
This
You
is in your
submitted it.
filing.
This was in the application that was submitted. Safe Haven,
It's-
a healing place for rescue animals, Inc., and then it says contact person Michael J. Costello Jr. is listed on that document from the IRS.
From 2019.
This is the document that documents that you are.
No, I know. I just think there's some kind of mix-up. Like, I don't know if the EIN for a different. Because there's a lot of safe haven organizations, but I mean, I can get
Well,
you.
Yeah.
It confirms the address on this that you have used
It has
elsewhere
this-
in your application.
And it has the same phone number on it
All right,
that
I
you've
will.
used.
I will look into that immediately. I've never heard that name before.
Yeah, we need to know the board members, the officers of the organization, and who's residing on the the
Yeah.
for the cottage.
No, absolutely. I just
So that's a piece
I
of
have no
information
idea
we need
what that
for legal purposes to analyze it. And then we do need confirmation. I think the board needs confirmation of the exact number of visits that are going to happen. You said it's different from what you have in your paper, so we need something in writing setting forth exactly what the visitation is going to be.
That you propose.
sure, of
That
course.
you're proposing.
Is building inspector look at this for facilities? You know,
Excuse me?
Has building inspector commented or looked at this at all? Because having had a kid
There's
and
no-
spent a lot of time at like Muscoot and places like that, you need facilities.
Yeah, I was going to
I don't
ask.
think we've looked at, I don't,
Well,
go ahead, sorry.
So for every cottage, the building inspector or one of his designees will go out and inspect the cottage component. But as there's nothing proposed in terms of structures or features, the building inspector wouldn't go wouldn't go out or really have say
So
unless
it's
a
a-
building application permit, is submitted. But at that time, this applicant's not submitted. One is that's not part of their proposal.
But would we get to look at a site plan that details precisely how the special use would operate on the property? I'm looking at the one site plan, which is like, it's a survey with some highlighting on it. I personally would want to see something more robust showing, how this is a place of assembly that's having people from off the premises coming in and where the pedagogical activities are occurring. It basically just looks like a house with, a barn.
Yes. Agreed, and the applicant was informed that they would be having to do that.
Okay.
And emergency services should probably comment too.
Would the board like to officially refer it to the Village Fire Department?
Well, I think
for review?
first
Actually,
maybe we should find out more from legal.
Well, I think we should do both
We can
at
do
the
it
same
all the
time.
same. You can do all the information gathered.
Yeah, but I think it would be a good idea. And I'd like to consult with someone about the care and keeping of goats and sheep.
Fold in waste management to that too.
Yeah, well, that's one of the major issues. How important is it when you're keeping that many and exposing them on a regular basis to changing human contact? Is it important to have a vet regularly looking at them? Maybe my instinct is that it probably is important, but my instinct isn't really worth the paper it's
Open
not written on.
to start that communication, absolutely.
And also, I don't know how we look into what the educational requirements are for taking care of children on the property for the educational purposes, making sure they have bathrooms and water. Does the water, I know another place that did this for a short while stopped because the water had to be treated with chlorine and be a public well, which was a whole different level of, so there are a lot of issues that relate to having children on the property that are educational where you don't have any certification, and that may be a problem too.
This is just a question on the interaction with ZBAs. Were we to move forward on this application, would we wait for the ZBA to vary the requirement regarding the county road? Or would that be something they would do after the fact?
Generally, you could refer it. However, it sounds like there's a substantial bit of information that this board may want to have received back in order to then, potentially
For
provide
sure.
a memo to supply that to the zoning board so that they too are equipped with the same information, so that both boards, are making determinations on the same set of facts.
Okay, yeah, that's
I would
helpful.
think
Yeah.
that they might have some of the same questions
Sure.
that we do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
But
looking
as a
at,
general rule, we would not make a final decision until we knew if they had the variances.
right, okay, that's, makes sense. And I mean, just looking at the ordinance, I mean, we have 3 findings or, conditions essentially. They have to be on a county or state road, which this is not. They have to have a nonprofit status, which they do. And then they have to demonstrate to us their community purpose, which I think is what we're kind of circling around right now.
Yeah.
So I would want to make sure that we had all 3 of those
But
solved.
you have to look at the general conditions for
And those as well, thank you, yeah.
Right, there are issues raised by the fact that it is on a cul-de-sac
And in one way, it's good for the community that the hours are limited, but in the other side, looking at this and the reclassification to a private operating foundation in 2022, the year before the property was purchased, there are certain dots that one may connect that, this is not actually for a true and full
Philanthropic purpose, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, before I think perhaps we should keep the public hearing
open.
open,
Yes.
but before I adjourn it, but do not close it. Are there any more comments from members of the public tonight, from either the Zoom or the audience? Okay. Then could I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
There's someone on Zoom.
Excuse me. Yeah, hi. Just tried to butt in there. My name is John Franco Trapicchio. I live at 19 Bayberry Lane.
Yes.
And regarding the special use permit for the sanctuary, we would just like to echo comments that have already been made that I don't see a way in which this doesn't change the fabric of a very, very small cul-de-sac. In ways that we moved here 2 years ago with 3 young children who bike and run up and down the street and feed the horses when they walk by. And we think this would have a deleterious effect to the fabric of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments before we take the vote on adjourning?
This is Stephen Russell again, 43 Bayberry Lane. There was a comment made about where the funding is coming from, and I just wanted to see if that could be clarified again, because a search on the website for Safe Haven, a healing place, yields numerous donation pages, and I'm just wondering if the funding is coming from there or from somewhere else. I'm just unclear on that.
Okay, so similarly to board members that I've never heard about, there are numerous Safe Haven organizations. I am not taking any public donations. I'm not soliciting. I'm not requesting. So whatever Safe Haven donation page is not this one.
There is one on pledge.to that lists the organization name and the 44 Bayberry Lane, and the same EIN as is on the IRS document.
And it says
What is
donate.
pledge to? Like, I've never heard of that. Literally, someone could have posted that on my everything on the website that I created says all services free to the public. I am not, and you mentioned about it changing to a private operating foundation was specifically so. I am not getting any public donations or investment whatsoever. That's connecting the dots, is that it's completely self-funded.
I'll have to look into it.
And then, look,
I'm surprised that you've never come across someone who's, I mean, you've been badly hacked if this is.
I don't think it's hacked. It's someone could probably just create that and say it's in my name and
Well,
put
that's
the
what I
address.
mean by
Yeah,
hacking.
like
I
I've
suppose-
never put up anything for donations or requested. I've never heard of that site.
I mean, Mr. Wright, there's also a ProPublica page that says, that talks about Safe Haven, a healing place, Inc. in Bedford. Talks about $1.9 million in contributions. I don't know if that's all privately from you or not.
What page is that you're saying?
ProPublica.
I don't.
Again, that's a well-known
It's a very
website that tracks a
well-known,
not-for-profit
incredibly
organization. I think there's just a lot of
well-reputed
concerns about
Right.
journal.
that have to be beefed up as far as how the organization is funded and what the underlying purpose was when it was formed. You can obviously hear that the board is concerned about. So.
No, I understand. I'm just letting you know there's no request solicitation whatsoever for public investment, donation, anything like that, for anything I'm doing. And I don't plan on there ever will be. I don't want to be in fundraising.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's anything else that we're going to do tonight. We've adjourned the public hearing. I think if you could get us a bit more information, exactly what you're doing, perhaps a bit more about your training and about the sanctuary where you worked before, and perhaps some contact information from them, so that we have some idea about what your background is.
Of course. there's been a lot of mentions of different, like, Westchester Health Department. Is there any way I can get an email with some bullet points of, like, this?
Yes,
I think
I will
yeah,
do that for you.
okay, I
And
appreciate
I need
it.
all the answers back by July 10th, no later. Otherwise, we'll have to adjourn you to a later date meeting than the July meeting, which is July 22nd.
Understand. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
And, sorry, Madam Chair, would you like to adjourn both public hearings for the cottage and the special permit request for real Mawson use?
A good point. Could I have I think we've adjourned the public hearing for the eleemosynary use. Could I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing for the cottage?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We've adjourned the cottage public hearing as well. Okay, that takes care of the public hearings for tonight. The next item on our agenda is a continued application to consider an application for a steep slopes permit to remove fill material in order to stabilize disturbed steep slopes. The owner applicant is Roy Kopej, Peter Gregory, and the address is 16 Old Katona Road. And I think you're here to speak for the applicant.
Yes, I am. Good evening. Peter Gregory with DTS Provident. I'm here tonight with Mr. Coppage, and we are seeking a steep slope permit as well as a wetland permit to restore an area that had been disturbed by regrading and placement of fill, both over a steep sloped area and within the 100-foot regulated setback. We are looking to correct a violation. The town had issued a violation for that activity, and we are looking to correct that and restore that area, and also offering landscape mitigation as replacement for trees that had been removed as part of that operation. Since the last time that we were before the board, we did receive the memorandum from Han's office, which does recommend at this point an approval subject to several conditions here, one of them being obtaining approval from the Wetland Commission. We are scheduled to meet with the Wetland Commission. They are going to conduct another site walk this Wednesday, and we have been placed on their agenda for July 1st to bring them up to date on where we stand with everything, and any suggestions they may have they would like to discuss with us prior to issuing their wetland permit.
That's correct.
So I think nothing has changed on the plans since our site walk and what we've presented, and everything does remain the same.
Okay, are there any questions from members of the board about this application?
No. Looks good to me.
It all seems very straightforward to me, and we do have the full explanation of what the violation involved. No fill is proposed to be exported from or imported to the site, but the construction will alter steep slopes. And approval is recommended subject to the following items. The Bedford Wetlands Control Commission, the performance bond in the amount of $25,000, and we should inform the Jim Hahn's office if we do approve that, so that they can complete the appropriate portions of the stormwater management program. Anybody have any questions about any of this?
That sounds good.
I agree.
Is that a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. This does involve a steep slopes permit, so, I would argue that it is in fact an unlisted action. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All of those in favor of it being considered an unlisted action under seeker?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So it is an unlisted action under seeker. That does mean that we need to go through the environmental assessment form, and I think we have one of those. And I would suggest that we do this the same way we did the previous one. Does everybody have a copy of the,
I
or I
do.
may have the only copy of the part one. So the project location is 16 Old Katona Drive. There is no, is it attached to the documents as well?
It just attached it in a separate email, yeah. Just in case anyone wants it in front of them.
Okay. One seems fine. Two. It is a permitted use under zoning regulations. It is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan.
We just need to check those boxes.
Yeah. It's consistent with the predominant character of the existing built or natural landscape. They haven't checked a box, but it sounds to me as if it is.
Agreed.
Would you agree?
Yes.
Yep. I agree.
Yep.
Is it located in or adjoin a state-listed CEA? No. No impact on traffic, transportation services or pedestrian accommodation. Does it meet or exceed state energy code requirements?
NA.
Not applicable.
It's NA or yes, because if there are no energy requirements for it, then it seems to me it must meet them. Will it connect to an existing public-private water supply? No. Nor will it connect to an existing wastewater utility. It's not contiguous to anything on the National Register, nor is it in an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites. It does involve wetlands. That's part of the problem, but it will not physically alter or encroach into any existing wetland or water body. So it doesn't encroach into the wetland? I thought.
No, it does not.
Okay, so it's
In
just
the
in the
buffer.
buffer.
Correct.
Okay. Typical habitat type is forest and suburban
And wetland.
and wetland. It does not contain any listed animals or associated habitats, threatened or endangered animals. It is not located in the 100-year floodplain.
You have to check yes so that it will create stormwater discharge.
Yes, it will.
The other two I agree are no.
The other two are both no. Does the proposed action include construction or other activities that would result in the impoundment of water? No.
No.
Has this action or has the site of the proposed action or an adjoining property been the location of an active or closed solid waste management facility? No. nor has the property been subject to remediation. Okay, based on those answers in the part one, is there any of the part two thresholds, which again, I don't really think we should have to read off? Are there any of the part two thresholds where we would be inclined to check moderate to large impact may occur? I do not see any that do on the basis of the part one that we've just gone through.
Me neither.
Agreed.
Is that
Agreed.
unanimous?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, that being the case, would anybody care to make a motion about the determination of significance?
I move that there is no significant adverse impact.
Is there a second? This is
Second.
based on what we've just discussed.
That's correct.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a negative declaration. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We have now made a negative declaration. Back to the original resolution on the floor. Did we include the conditions in the original resolution?
I thought you did, but it doesn't hurt to repeat it.
Okay, so the conformance to Jim Hahn's memo and permission from the Wetlands Commission, which is actually contained in Jim Hahn's memo as well. And for that, we might as well list them all. A bond in the amount of $25,000, and approval of the project by the planning board and BWCC. Informing the town environmental officer of the approval of the project by the planning board and the Wetlands Commission if and when both approvals have been given, so that he can begin the stormwater prevention plan process. So with those conditions, do we have a motion and a second?
I move to approve with those conditions.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? You have it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item on our agenda. Oh, we have an easy one now. Consider an application for a site plan approval and a steep slopes permit for the decommissioning of an existing asphalt plant and the relocation and construction of a new asphalt plant. The owner applicant is Peckham Materials Corporation, and I believe there is someone here to speak on behalf of.
Yes, good evening. It's Charles Mortivano. I apologize for not appearing before you personally tonight, but I had multiple meetings, and this was the only way I could attend. With me tonight are Jason Gaffel from Peckham, Jeff Belville, and on Zoom as well, Jennifer Harper.
Okay. Do you want to make any kind of a statement before we begin to?
No, quite frankly, I'm aware that we're here, I guess, to discuss the draft negative declaration. Certainly, we look forward to your comments. We saw the draft on the agenda, and it's part of your package tonight. And I presume that there are some either questions or comments you might have, and we're looking to address those.
Okay. And did you want to speak before we start, or?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we do have before us a document from the applicant, which has been very helpful to as a starting point for some discussion. But I do have to make the point that what we're doing tonight is not necessarily preparing a negative declaration. What we're doing is developing a part three. which is the process by which we will eventually get to either a positive or negative declaration. But what we are doing as part of the seeker process at the moment is what is called for in Part 3, which is to respond, to give further information on those things that we've identified in the Part 2 at our last meeting that need further elucidation before we make a final decision about whether to give a neg deck or a positive declaration. So the layout of the document that you presented doesn't entirely fit into that process, and it is the normal procedure of this board to try to stick to the basic outline of the seeker process in discussing these issues. So what we are going to be looking for is to essentially do some rearrangement of the very helpful information that you have given us, and look through the things that we have, but put our emphasis on the things that we have identified in the Part 2 as needing further discussion. That doesn't mean that we can't mention things like the fact that there are no endangered species on the property, and therefore there's no impact on endangered species. But since in the Part 2 we already said that there was no impact from that, that's been taken care of. So the ones that I've identified as needing some discussion in the Part 3, and a number of these are covered in one way or another by what you've given us, but not in the same order. We have there is an impact on land, and in particular we need to talk about items B and F, the steep slopes and possible erosion potential. There is item 3 of the Part 2, the impact on surface water. Again, there was some concern expressed about turbidity and soil erosion, and also some concern about the impact of the storage piles of material. We need a little bit more information on how they're going to be protected from eroding, for want of a better word, into the slope below them, and below those piles is the reservoir system. So it's important that they remain on top of the slope, not further down. There is item 4, the impact on groundwater, and I think the only thing that we need a bit more discussion of is that there will be bulk storage of petroleum. We need just a little bit of information on how that will be protected, how the land will be protected from the danger of spills and that sort of thing. I think all that was in the material we had was just it'll be the same as it is today, and that may be just fine, but if you could elucidate what protection exists today, that would be helpful. There is an impact on air, and that's a more complicated one that I suspect we'll get into a bit more discussion on, but it's items A, C, D, and F. There's an impact on aesthetic resources. That was the potential impact. I think there's a very good argument that's been made that is not a significant impact. That the material that you've provided and the rest has convinced this board that there is no negative impact from that. It makes it onto the Part 2 list because it is visible from publicly accessible vantage points, but what you're seeing from those vantage points is not really going to change very much from what is there today, therefore really does not constitute an impact. There's potential impact on the CEA, but it does not exceed the threshold for impacts. There will need to be some discussion of the impact of odor, as well as some discussion of noise and light. Connected to that impact on odor is some discussion of the impact on human health. And then the last one that I have is the consistency with community plans, items A and C.
I'm sorry, I could not hear the last comment that you made. Could you repeat that, please?
Item 17.
17, thank you.
It's consistency with community plans, the discussion of the comprehensive plan. So I don't think we're going to get into a detailed discussion of each of those tonight, but I'd like to open the floor to my fellow board members and ask you if there are specific issues relating to any of those Part 2 items that you would want to hear them talk about, that you would want to hear talked about in the final Part 3.
Protecting air quality will be a big one, and with that health, and you mentioned those, so it's just emphasizing that.
So, do we have any information on protecting air quality? That they've provided quite an extensive discussion of the new systems that have been put in, but our consultant has in fact requested some air quality testing be done post-completion. And I think that that's something that is worthy of discussion in addition to the things that the applicant has talked about. We've also, in regard to air quality, talked about the fact that standards may change. Standards are changing now, which is one of the reasons for your building the new plant, and they are likely to change in the future, and you have agreed, I believe, that in future, if changes are made, you will immediately go about trying to meet those new thresholds. Is that correct?
That's accurate.
And we thank you for that. Other issues?
There's no real comment about this existing cell phone tower and what happens to it.
Yes, and I apologize that it didn't appear in our draft document, but as you might recall, from the very beginning, back even in July of 2021, we identified the action that we would also be taking down the cell tower. So if you want us to amend that, of course we'll do that.
Yeah.
And we'll also use the qualified contractor. As you might recall, there was a previous tower on the site. I think we took that down around 2 years ago. We used the qualified contractor for that. We will do the same thing here.
Right, we just need confirmation the tower is coming down.
Tower's
And have the
Absolutely.
methods and means for taking down the tower, exactly, so.
Not a problem. And would you like that as part of the description of action in the form that we use? I know you might rearrange it, but is that where you'd like to see it?
It might go on the impact on aesthetic resources section.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely needs to go in the description of proposed action.
Correct.
Right.
Well, yes, that's,
But we will do that, don't worry.
Okay. I just meant, thank you.
okay. Any other? Talked about the efforts to avoid petroleum spills and the storage of preventing the erosion of the material storage piles. there still is an issue of our code in regard to odors. Do we have any comments about that?
Well, I mean, I've been trying to understand the applicant's has made comments in the past about our ordinance and which prohibits across the board. It prohibits nuisance odors, and it's something that I would think we could talk about as a way to assure that there are no odor-based or and by this I mean like the aesthetic odor, not air quality impacts, but the Section 15 impact on noise, odor, and light. Ensure that there are no impacts there because simply prohibited by the ordinance.
I think that we did provide you, Jason can correct me in case I'm wrong, with I think it's an 11-point plan on odor mitigation. Do you recall that? I think it's in the draft negative declaration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And I think also that Jason pointed out that, I think someone asked at a prior meeting, and I could be wrong, but, well, what if each thing doesn't work? We said we're going to address the issue. That's what we're going to do. That's what Peckham does. So, beyond what we have there, I'm not sure what we could do except to say that if someone makes a complaint, and it's not a complaint based on a truck that's on, Route 117 have a load of hot asphalt, but if it's a complaint regarding the plant, we're going to address it. We have that plan, but we won't be limited by that plan. We'll continue to work with the town in the event a complaint is made.
Right, I think it's an elaboration regarding if there are complaints about odors from the plant, what are the methods that are going to be taken, or what are the steps that are going to be taken to address the odors?
Okay.
So
you
can
want
elaborate
amplification on that?
Right, if you can elaborate on what other potential future mitigation measures you can take to address odors, I think I believe that's what the board is asking for.
And
But
resolve
also,
them.
but
And
also,
resolve
act-
them.
yeah.
Right.
I'm actually also looking for exactly the kind of statement that Mr. Maravano just made that I haven't actually heard him make before.
Okay.
That if there's a problem, you'll recognize that it we have to try and solve it.
Well, it has to be resolved.
Yeah, the problems need to be resolved.
And not by function of kind of a casual agreement, but by function of our issuing of the permit in the first place, right? Like it's they're on the hook,
Yeah.
substantively, right?
Yeah, to fix it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Not just
our-
to address it, but to actually address it in a way
Yeah.
that remediates it
Yeah,
and resolves
because
it.
in essence,
Oh, it's-
what you're asking us to do, which is legitimate for you to ask us to do, is to accept your modeling of the likely results of this. You've made a convincing argument that there will not be excessive odors because of the 11-point program that you've spelled out. But sometimes modeling can not work. Sometimes it can be wrong. This all only comes into importance if it turns out the modeling was wrong. And basically what we're asking is that you stand by the idea that this project is not going to create these odors. So if it turns out that your modeling wasn't enough, you'll look for other solutions.
So if I can just jump in there real quick, I'll try to be brief because we've had these discussions before, but I'll just reiterate that the new regulations DEC is putting out, which I happen to sit on the subcommittee which is drafting those, are exactly for what you're concerned.
Mm-hmm.
The existing regulation is a model-based regulation which talks about a certain concentration at a property line. Well, the end result of that, and it's the state's document, it's not mine, the phone keeps ringing, and there are still complaints about odors. So now they're taking a step back and they're looking about how to solve this issue, and they're putting forth the new 220 regulation, which is all about odor control and the mitigation of the nuisance complaints. So they are mandating criteria like vent condensers on your heated AC tanks. That's not in the regulations right now. So they believe that's a source of potential nuisance odors, and they're going to mitigate it. They're mandating blue smoke capture systems, which we've talked about those in the past, not part of the regulation currently, going to be mandated in the regulation going forward. We've committed to fully enacting all of these. Just a quick aside on vent condensers. Not all vent condensers are the same, or you can buy one and fit it on every tank. There's an engineering process that goes into that. The size of the tank, how many times the tank turns over, etc. So these are unique devices. There's a general category, but if I've got a 5,000 gallon tank and you've got a 35,000 gallon tank, as you can imagine, those two vent condensers are different. We will commit to having the engineering study done that properly sizes the vent condensers. If there is a problem in the future with that vent condenser, we will have paid a subcontractor to engineer that for us, and we will bring them in and say, we're still having odor concerns with, and I'm using the vent condensers as an example. That same conversation can happen with the blue smoke system, etc. Where that engineering solution, why did it fail? Why didn't it predict the mitigation that we were looking for? Because we'll have paid good time and money to make sure it got engineered properly, and we want resolution of that as well. So we can commit to the board that we're not going to go through all of these controls and then not ensure that they're going to work. And that we can commit to, we've been saying it, and there's no issue committing to that process, that engineering process that we would go through.
Well, I think that's at least what I'm looking for in it, so thank you.
That is helpful. And I maybe just to reframe my comments earlier, I think the helpful thing for us as the board determining that there's no odor impacts presented by this application is also the fact that our ordinance prohibits it in the first place, right? So I think that that's something that we should be pointing to as a comfort in making this decision and this determination that should there be, should the 11-point plan not sufficiently alleviate the odor problems, and again, that's distinct from the air quality discussion. We can keep that separate, but that's something that we can point to down the road as a way to come back and say this will be resolved to our satisfaction. That's really where I'm coming from on that point.
Agreed. I think that's a really articulate way to frame it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you.
Sure. By the way, I also want to apologize. We don't have an civil engineering consultant tonight. Rich Williams couldn't make the meeting. I didn't mention it earlier, but I just wanted to point that out tonight.
The other things that I think we still need to struggle with a little bit is being clear about what future uses of this property, to what extent can future uses of this property be out of sync with Bedford's zoning?
It needs to be in sync with zoning. That's going to be this is a principal use on the property. Whatever zoning allows, other uses on this property is what's permitted, but under the ZBA zoning, the ZBA's use variance, this is the principal use on the property.
Okay.
And then if the code does allow certain other types of commercial uses in association with this, then we'd have to go through the process of reviewing those.
Right.
It would have to comply with zoning at that point. Right?
So heavy,
Yes.
Other separate heavy industrial uses
Are not.
Permitted because.
I'd have to look and see. I mean, I don't believe they're permitted under the code that you're now allowed to put another heavy. I mean, it's not permitted in this zone anyway, so
Right,
it wouldn't be
that's-
permitted on this property in any case. Correct.
Yeah,
Yes,
we don't have any heavy
Right.
industrial, light industrial.
without a use variance, exactly. Without a second use variance.
Right.
So.
Okay. So I think that's something that needs to be spelled out.
We're gonna elaborate on that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
And that's fine.
Then I think there needs to be some either acknowledgement or discussion of the issue of the cap on capacity. I'm assuming that you are not committing to never, I understand you're not asking for any increase in the capacity cap at the moment, but you are producing a plant that potentially has the ability to exceed that capacity.
The throughput is the exact same as what we currently have. But there are two mechanisms in the existing permit that essentially cap the production. One is a physical tonnage cited in our air permit.
Right.
I'm talking about our state-issued air permit. And the second are a series of emission limits in the same permit.
Right.
And those two work together. So we've committed to maintaining the hard tonnage cap as well as the existing emission caps. And so we feel very comfortable saying that we can continue in our operations and remain at or below those caps.
The existing emissions caps, that will change at any time what those caps become.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Okay, so if the emissions changes, is capped for any particular pollutant,
Right.
at any time you will come under that cap.
Yes, absolutely, and the example is, changes in PM 2.5.
Right.
We will be at or below any change in regulation as we're currently experiencing right now with the annual PM 2.5.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
the main one that I'm
Yes, ma'am.
thinking of at the moment.
And am I right that you're saying that you will not in the future apply for that you're committing not to apply for an extension?
So I'm 52. Hopefully we have this plant done by the time I'm 62. But I cannot say in 30 years from now someone from Peckham will not come to this board if there's a technology change. Things are changing all the time. I can't submit and say, Greg Peckham, who's going to be our future CEO, there's not going to be a new widget and it allows X, Y, Z. I can say for the foreseeable future, we've got a plant that we'd be very proud of to have in New York, we're proud of to have in this town, has all the modern controls that we've been talking about, and we feel very comfortable saying that we will commit to the current emission thresholds and emission caps.
Okay, that's all I have in this. Anybody else have additional things that?
I guess since we have the applicant here, there was the email clarifying the part 2 responses from our last meeting. I guess just so I can be sure I understand this, would it be possible to just walk through? You described the clarification on the various emission types: CO2, NOx, PFCs. Is it possible to just walk through the email you provided that clarified that? I know there's a lot of confusion last meeting between the part 2 that was submitted and what's actually planned.
Jason, do you want me to read them? I have the email up. It's on the board's website. If you don't have it handy, you want me to read it?
I don't have that handy. Do you want to go through that, Charlie?
Would that be acceptable to the board?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
All right, fine, all right. So under the question, the proposed action is located within 1,500 feet of a school, hospital, licensed daycare center, group home, nursing home, or retirement community. And then our response. The existing hot mix asphalt plant is currently located 424 feet to the Taconic Correctional Facility, and the separation distance from the proposed HMA plant location will increase to 1,150 feet. See attached figure. Going directly, I think, to your concerns regarding the tonnage, subpart 1, more than 1,000 tons / per year of carbon dioxide CO2. And Jason, your response was yes, 7,400 tons per year. And stop me at any time if you want to ask anything specific, otherwise I'll keep reading. Subpart 2, more than 3.5 tons per year of nitrous oxide and 2O, yes, 5 tons per year. Subpart 3, more than 1,000 tons per year of carbon equivalent of, I'm probably not going to pronounce this, but it's PFCs, or whatever, however you pronounce that. And the answer is no, 0 tons per year. Subpart 4, more than 0.045 tons per year of sulfur hexafluoride, SF6. Response, no, 0 tons per year. Subpart 5, more than 1,000 tons per year of carbon dioxide equivalent of HFCs. Emissions, response, no, 0 tons per year. Part 6, 43 tons / per year or more of methane, no, 1.48 tons per year.
And Charlie, can I stop you there? I remember now the issue we had. We had put 0. And when I had filled out the EAF, my thought process at the time was, we have an existing facility, we're producing the same amount with the new facility, so there wasn't an increase. But to cite the absolute number, which is part of the calculation, we went back, we understand your point.
Okay.
And that's how it went from 0 to 1.3.
Got it.
So I think that was, and then also we had put a note which overprinted the PFC, so we took that off and switched that.
So the responses here are intended to revise the part 2
Yes.
numbers from before. Okay, great. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, anything else? Is there anything that our council or our director of planning would
We don't-
advise us to?
We had a few issues in going through it. First one was there's a statement in the proposed document that was provided, the EPP plan, I guess, was submitted to and approved by New York State DEC. We wanted clarification on that. Was that done? Is that complete now, or where does that stand?
Yeah, so the way that works is DEC has to approve your plan before you can hold your public meeting, outside of these public meetings, the special meeting we had in the community. Their approval came in the format of an email, which said you are cleared to go ahead and have your meeting. So we can get that email, attach it to the document so that you can see. But that's if our document had not been approved, we would not have been allowed to proceed with the meeting.
Okay, we wanted clarification on that.
Sure.
You have the-
Of course.
Do you have the actual plan?
I think if you can provide us just that email, and then
Sure.
if there were any changes to the EPP itself that this board hadn't seen or what had gone out, just what those changes were, would be helpful to have
Sure.
too.
And then again, the chair brought it up, but again, how you're going to address storage and the materials on site, that was one of the other ones. We talked about the odor standards. I know you have a tree mitigation plan. I guess there's a statement that would not result in a loss of flora and fauna, but then later on, there's another statement that there is.
Yeah, so 3 words are missing there. Well, not going to result in a loss of species of special concern. So we need to insert those 3 words.
Right.
And then that fixes that clarification.
Yeah, and whatever mitigations or whatever is addressing, the taking down of the trees and those impacts. That discussion, I guess, if that's in the tree mitigation plan, or if there are trees going to be replanted, or how that's going to be addressed. Again, going through the visual impacts, the board's going to want to see, have a statement, as the chair said, as to why the construction of this tower is not going to have significant visual impacts, and that's going to be important for the zoning board too when it's granting its height variance. So, a little more elaboration on that issue would be appreciated.
So while you're looking at the notes, are you looking for a modification of the existing docket, the draft that we provided?
I think submissions from you with respect to these individual issues, we're reordering the document to coordinate with the EAF. So I think if you just, for each of these particular issues, if you could provide us the elaboration or the discussion.
And then you'll worry about the reordering?
We're handling the
Already
reordering,
worrying.
right? Yeah.
What's that?
It's already worrying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're taking care of that. So I think just addressing each of these issues and providing sort of commentary and the additional information that the board is requesting for each of these issues would be very helpful, and then we'll insert it in the appropriate section of the document.
So, just for clarification, so we could put it into this document, and when you convert it or reorganize it, you'll just bring the changes over, is that it?
No, please put them separately, just the way that we've already started to look at things would be much more helpful than trying to amend your current document with our hundreds of notes everywhere. It'd just be a lot cleaner if we can have it on one separate document, the comments we've talked about tonight.
So you don't want
Okay.
us to edit then the document we've
No,
already
it's
provided?
correct, a standalone would be helpful.
Okay.
And that's okay, you can bullet point it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that an issue?
I think that's about all I know.
An issue.
No, it's not an issue.
Okay. He looks shocked.
I think that's all I have. I
That's-
don't know if
There may be
Jessica has
some, so there may be just some smaller clarifying questions that we have that we'll pose to you.
Sure.
Like just offhand, I couldn't find quickly enough the air permit number. That's all. Just, we're gonna ask you to put that in there, and a couple small other housekeeping things. But, as the town attorney said, we've talked about all the topics, the large ones. So with those clarifying comments from the applicant as well as those that were presented by the planning board, I think that'll give us a fuller picture. And then once the kind of part 3 has been discussed in somewhat of a different format, then that'll be easier for everyone to look at and provide comment on. Satisfactory to the chair?
Makes sense to me. So I think that that's probably all we can do tonight, but
Okay.
I think we're well on our way to getting to a resolution here.
Okay.
Okay.
So if the applicant has nothing more for us, I don't think we have.
No, ma'am. Thank you
No.
for your time. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving back to you shortly.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is to consider a site plan application related to a special use permit amendment to an existing private school to construct new softball and soccer fields with supporting infrastructure, fences, dugouts, and related site drainage improvements. The owner applicant is the Harvey School on J Street in Bedford. I think there's someone here to speak for the applicant.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, P. Daniel Hollis, Gettinger, Waldinger, Monteleone, Gashu, and Hollis. I'm here with Heather Gashu, one of my partners. Introduce her to the board. She'll be helping me out on
Welcome.
this and future permits, so always good to have a qualified help to make up for my many shortcomings. So also with us are William Knauer, the head of school, Alex Brooks Barr, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Tysers, and Rick Zapp from Zarecki Engineering up in Pauling. As you know, we were here in March, on March 11th, with regard to a recommendation by your board as to the zoning board granting the amendment to the special permit. We were back in May, and secret determination was made by your board. We were in front of the zoning board on June 6th. The special permit amendment was granted, and we're back here tonight for hopefully a preliminary and final site plan approval based upon the submissions that you have received. Pardon me, the zoning board in their approval of the amendment to the special permit adopted the conditions from the 2019 approval as incorporated by reference into their resolution of approval. And we would submit respectfully that you might be able to do the same thing. You know, the only issue would be, I think there was a $50,000 bond in 2019, whether that amount stays the same. I don't know if Mr. Hahn mentioned that at all as to the amount, any of his submissions, but that could be a blank in any resolution, because that was a point of emphasis by some of the neighbors as to having the ability to manage stormwater runoff if our plan didn't operate successfully. The only other change from what I mentioned here in earlier meetings was an issue was raised as to people using the access road or access improperly. And Mr. Knauer wrote to all the neighbors on Pine Hill Drive, and we committed to a condition of approval with the zoning board that that access would be controlled, that there wouldn't be free access in and out of there, so that any unauthorized use of the access road would not take place.
And
That's
what
the
would
only
the
difference
nature
from what I've presented to you in the past. So Glenn is here and Rick's here to answer any technical questions about the plan, and I'm here for any legal points. And
What would the nature of the control be? Who would be allowed to use that entrance?
only Harvey employees.
Okay.
You know, I think that some, potentially some parents anxious to beat the line coming off of Route 22 may have used that road when it was unencumbered, and so that we don't want that to happen.
Okay.
I don't know how often it happened, but a point was made. It's an easy fix, so we're going to fix it.
Good.
It's a gate?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, any questions, additional questions or comments? We have not had issues with this application as we've been going through it the second time. We did reiterate that it would be a good idea to make sure that shade trees are replanted because of the loss of some of the trees in the area and the need to protect people from the sun, and we might reiterate that notion.
When they're
But-
spectating or when the kids are sitting on the side, it's just a lot of sun. Yes. You did, I think.
We did add them.
Yeah.
So they are
No,
on the current
I
plan.
know that.
Okay. Just wanna make sure.
I do know that, you did. I saw those. Thank you.
Glenn was pretty quick getting up here, too.
So, at this point, is anybody willing to make any kind of resolution?
Do we have conditions that we need to agree
Well,
upon?
yes, there's I think we could copy what the zoning board has done and reiterate the conditions of both our previous approval and theirs in 2019.
As well as,
In 2019, did we require a bond?
I think in 2019 we did.
It's Resolution 1924 of 2019. That was the resolution that had those other conditions.
And we did require a bond, didn't we?
That's why I brought it up, yes.
And I think we
It was
would.
in-
Twice,
Pardon?
at least twice.
And I think.
But not too much, just you requested. No double dip, right?
No, not
Okay.
double dipping.
But I think we would require the bond this
So
this time
we're
as
aware
well.
that that's,
yeah, as well as the final sign off from our town engineer.
we have that.
That has come back.
Oh, what are you doing?
Okay.
So is there anything else that we should put on there as a condition?
Well, our normal standards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just going back to the bond for a moment. So it says that, let's see, submission of a performance bond amount to be determined by the town attorney and/or town engineer. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I guess we'd have to reference the old town attorney's
So what did
memo
you
just
say?
to ensure.
Did you say it was $50,000 that was
Yeah,
ultimately
yes.
imposed? It was 50,000 ultimately. So-
That's what it was. Anybody remember?
We-
Yeah, that's fine. Well, they would have to
We'll
confirm
make
it.
the determination.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the most recent letter from town attorney, and there's no mention of it, so I would just want to reconfirm that number stands for you, that's all.
In an amount not to exceed, so I don't
Correct.
want to see one for 250,000.
Yes, yes, I hear you loud and clear, Mr. Hollis, that's your
Yes.
ceiling.
Thank you.
Okay, so is that,
Yeah, and then
So
just our
then those are the condition, are we set with the conditions?
and our standards
And
for
our
final
standards.
site plan.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr.
Yes, your
Tierney
standards
mentioned
for final
that.
site plan, town engineer's memo, as well as confirmation of the bond, the ZBA's June 2024 resolution, plus the two previous that were done for preliminary planning board and the other zoning board.
and this resolution is for approval of preliminary and final site plan. So.
You don't need the approval by the zoning board because we have that. That was one of the conditions in the planning board resolution.
No, I'm
of
just gonna
29.
incorporate the zoning board's most recent one,
Right, they sort of parrot each other.
and we will ensure they do.
Okay.
I move to approve with the conditions that we just enumerated.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? You have it.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Pleasure. Thanks, as always, for your attention to all the details, and we'll see you again whenever we have something else.
Fair enough. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Bye-bye. Okay, next item on our agenda is to consider a waiver of site plan application for a yoga studio to be located at 748 North Bedford Road in Bedford Hills. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Pat Mitchell from Pastoral Engineering. I'm here to represent John and Ciparillo for our application for site plan waiver for 748 North Bedford Road. It is previously was part of the Napa store. They have since moved out, and there is a lease space available in there that is approximately 20 feet by 99 feet deep. And the applicant is proposing to put a yoga studio in there. There is no work being done outside of the building. At some point, she'll come in for her sign permit, but other than that, everything is being done inside of the building.
Are there going to be showers or anything of that sort? Changing rooms?
There are not. There is an existing bathroom, but there's no showers in place.
What is the operating time going to be? What are your hours of operation?
Usually around 8 to 8. I mean, there's usually a break in between there,
Mhm.
like 12 to maybe 4:30.
Okay.
Use our mics.
For the record, that was 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Yes.
Have we looked at the parking? Is there any change in the parking requirements for yoga or? There really doesn't seem to be, well, it seems to make a lot of sense to do a waiver of site plan approval because
I
there
agree.
really is no site plan issue.
Yes. In this case,
issue
that
raised.
seemed to be the proper way to go.
How large will the classes be?
They're going to range from 15 to 20 people.
Okay, so 20 is.
Yep.
So that would,
Can we just confirm, in your application, you said you intend to install a second bathroom? Is that still the plan?
In time.
In time?
Yes.
Yes. So that will be part of our building permit application.
Okay.
You know, the building permit application, as shown on the plans, is going to be install basically an L-shaped wall to separate the space into two spaces so that one could be hot yoga and one.
So you're probably going to want to disclose that too in your Board of Health application as well?
Yes.
Because you'll need that for change of use.
Correct.
Okay.
is this going to go into the sewer system or is
Nope,
this?
that's all septic.
It's all septic.
And you've already secured the lease, or you're still in the process of securing the lease for the space?
We wanted to get through this process before we got through the lease process. Thank you.
Smart.
Do you have a locker room planned as well?
There'll be cubbies. There'll be cubbies
But
and
not
place for
changing
shoes.
rooms?
There might be changing areas, but not closed off spaces.
And you have no other new changes to the plans than what you had originally submitted?
That's correct.
Okay.
There may be potentially a name change.
And that would affect your sign, I presume.
Right, that's okay. That'll be incorporated in your sign application.
Correct.
So,
As I said, it seems straightforward to me. Would I have a motion?
with
I
conditions
move.
for eventually sign, Board of Health, and then your building permit,
Understood.
Pretty standard.
And we're including a second bathroom
We're-
as part of the.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Is that, did you make a motion, Diane?
A motion to approve with those conditions.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I believe that under seeker, this would be a type 2.
Move that it's a type 2.
Second.
Any further discussion of it being a type 2? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is a type 2. Back to the original resolution on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor of granting a waiver of site plan approval with the conditions we've talked about? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You have it.
Thank you for your time.
Good luck.
Good luck with your lease.
Thank you so much.
Okay, the next item on our agenda, and believe it or not, the last item on our agenda, is to consider an application for a steep slope permit to construct a house and driveway. The owner is Ivanhoe Old Aspeton LLC, and the applicant is Bibbo Associates. Tim Allen.
I missed this.
And I think this is mostly a preliminary look at this.
Good evening, again, Tim Allen with Bibbo Associates. Representing Old Aspeton LLC. The property at the end of Old Aspeton, it's 11 plus acres. The existing driveway that comes into the property and it sweeps through past the pond and onto the property. Our applicant has been before you on the property next door, probably 3-4 months ago. It was a steep slopes permit issued for that lot also. This is his other holding on the larger property, which he plans to develop into his house site. The property, as I said, passes a pond and then comes back through the property and connects to the back of the house via driveway, about 1,700 feet of driveway from Old Aspeton back to the house site. On the Zoom call with us tonight are the architects from Walker Workshop, Alpna Gupna and Noah Walker. They're on from Los Angeles. They could chime in on the house construction, but similar to the property next door, is a very unique house that's being proposed, and you saw the package that was submitted. It's actually, we call this the bridge house. There are two series of rocks centrally located in the property, and this house is built to bridge across those instead of taking down the rock outcrops and creating a flat area. The house is designed to bridge across it where you can actually walk underneath the house. So there's an upper area and then a lower area for the garage, and then the pool will be down in the patio area down in the lower area. So it's a very interesting and environmental friendly design for the house. It's also not a very large house in terms of some of the other houses that in comparison in Bedford. So we are before the board for a steep slopes permit. It's an initial application, so we did receive Jim Hahn's comments. Initially also, when we first approached the design of this, we had realized that we had really wanted to keep the existing grades of the driveway that are there today. Having looked at the property and trying to regrade and force the driveway onto this property at a different vertical and horizontal configuration would have been problematic, a disturbance and tree clearing and everything else. So initially we went straight to on engineering and to the fire department and talked to them about the existing grades and whether or not the existing grades would be acceptable for fire apparatus and what have you. And I believe you have in your file a letter from the Bedford Village Fire Department acknowledging, number one, that we're going to do a pervious paver throughout on the driveway, and also that they could access the driveway from the existing grades. We're also in discussion with them with creating a dry hydrant on the pond that they can use not only for this property but for locally. They do have a shortage of water in this area of town, which we were going to work with them on the dry hydrant installation. We've simultaneously submitted to the Bedford Wetland Control Commission, and we have a site walk with them this Wednesday. So again, initial submittal. We have received the comments from Han, and we'll be addressing them in the interim.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that this is a site that we would be well to do a site visit to as well. So I think we will ask.
Agreed. It's a unique property. It's rare you come across a property like this. It's really it's a spectacular piece, and I think the architects have really done a great job in utilizing the land and not.
I'll be interested to see it. It's part of what when we first started talking about steep slopes legislation years ago, part of what we hoped to get out of it was more of a tendency to actually work with the land instead of against the land.
Yep.
It hasn't happened as much as we'd like to see, so it's nice to see it here. I don't know that there's anything else that we can do tonight.
Do you want to show any of the architectural plans? Just because it's such a unique one?
Alpna, if you're on, can you just show up the rendering?
Hi, yes. I'm Alpna from Walker Workshop, and I can share my screen if you want to see a little bit more documentation on the project.
Yes,
Can everyone
please.
see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, and I think as Tim mentioned, since it is an undeveloped site, the design intent of the project is really to take advantage of the existing slopes and really the natural beauty of the site itself. And as he mentioned, we are taking advantage of the kind of existing partial driveway, snaking past the pond, and then also extending that so we can provide the owner with some privacy, so that way we can snake around some of the steeper slopes on the site and then cut and enter the project through the back. And there are two existing steep slopes, which are kind of like peaks, that we're using for the major structural basis for the structural foundation for the project itself. And as you can see in our renderings, we're hoping that this project kind of feels more like it's integral to the landscape. It's something that provides the client with kind of a treehouse feel. They want to live completely on the upper level, and they want to live amongst the trees and really take advantage of the surroundings. And in doing, by raising or actually locating this project where we feel like we're able to take care of that. And also, we are reducing the amount of excavation as well by just locating the garage at the lower level, and the primary residence is pretty much situated fully on the steep, on these peaks here. I can just run through some renderings. So this would be the view coming through the entrance, and you have the pool located just underneath the building. And then these are additional views here as well from the pool area. And then additionally, we've located the primary suite to face the wetlands and kind of oversailing over one of the peaks. These are some views of the interior shots and the primary bedroom. But I think this kind of represents the main idea and design intent of the project.
Pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. Better hope that ground doesn't shift.
So again, you can see the two rock outcrops. One will be incorporating into the garage area, and then the rock up on the left, which is toward the pond side, which will be the other side of that bridge area. So it's a very interesting design, and again, works very well with the land.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And very costly.
Are the existing the trees shown in the rendering existing or proposed at like a 10-year growth cycle?
We've located the trees. Alpna, are those trees, the trees that are on the plan, or are those?
Well, Yeah, these are trees to enhance the renderings. We haven't gone through and taken the actual trees from the survey and put that into our plans. Currently, the site is very wooded. So if you look at this on the survey that we provided, we've located all of the trees that have a diameter over 18 inches. But when you visit the site, you'll see that, the majority of the site is wooded with a lot of trees. So we are planning to keep as many of those trees as we can, and then just open up some areas to provide the views for the house.
Yeah, what we had done was just have the trees in the disturbance limits. So there are obviously a lot more trees outside of those limits that we haven't located. So I think that's you'll get a great appreciation for it when you see it. It is very weird.
Okay. I think that we've
That's all
done.
we can do.
So my office will reach out to you
Coordinate
guys
with
with
the sidewalk. Okay.
Sidewalk, yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for showing us the renderings. And on that note, could I have a motion to end the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The meeting is